Hello guys, welcome back to Anime Moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Queer restrictions. Danboro looked at these fiendish tiny figurines and his heart leaped. Every single tiny figurine was refined using the souls of strong practitioners, therefore they were all extremely strong and only knew how to kill. Meanwhile, these strange cubes formed an incomparably complicated lock. With runes shining on it, as long as the pattern of the runes were correct, could the lock be open, otherwise, they would let out these tiny figurines. There were countless translucent figurines, and every time the runes shone out by the talisman treasure hit a cube, the cube would move back automatically and disappear. The steps to unlocking the restrictions are so complicated. It's hard to do so without this talisman treasure. The talisman treasure continued to spin and the runes shone out by all 14 sides were also ever-changing, causing the cubes in front of them to move back one by one. The talisman treasure floated forward and the tortoise backguard walked forward. Danboro quickly followed up and walked through a very long passage. Suddenly, he saw a wide clearing in front of his eyes. It was a completely different world inside the Golden Palace Hall. From the outside, this Golden Palace Hall wasn't that big, but from the inside, it was minimally 10 times larger. There were pillars lined up after one another which were followed by golden altars of all shapes and sizes. On each golden altar, there was a queer-shaped treasure placed on it. The tortoise backguard brought Junior Protector Sword, smiling as he walked forward. This kind of precious treasure must definitely be placed in the deepest and most prestigious location. My powers are not enough to seal it, so we can only wait for Grand Shaman to come forward and seal it personally. Danboro, you have done a great deed, even I'm envious of you. Danboro smiled at once. I had not only received a treasure from that person of eternal peace. I have also received a small jade bottle and it's most likely a sacred medicine inside. I took a sniff and it was heavenly, as if I was going to turn into an immortal. He took out a small jade bottle from his sleeves and the eyes of the tortoise backguard lit up when he saw it. Snatching it over, he smiled. Danboro, now that you have done a great deed, Grand Shaman will definitely reward you. Since I have brought you here in advance to choose your treasure, how can you not give presents to me? I shall take the sacred medicine in this jade bottle. Danboro gave a pained expression. The tortoise backguard saw his pained expression and smiled, stingy. After he had said it, he opened up the jade bottle and gave it a sniff. How fragrant. A smile remained on the face of the tortoise backguard as he collapsed stiffly. Danboro held his breath and immediately snatched the jade bottle over and stuffed the cork back, not daring to take in a single sniff. He gave some thought and took out another jade bottle and collected all the air in the surroundings into the jade bottle before opening up the mouth of the tortoise backguard. He placed the jade bottle without a stopper into his mouth and kept it there. This way he won't be able to wake up anytime soon. Phew. Danboro let out a murky breath and started to shed his skin. Another human came out from Danboro's skin and it was Qin Mu. Now I could be considered to have used the methods of the devil path. Qin Mu looked at the skin on the ground and shook his head. Granny Sai could wear other people's skin and change constantly, however, he was still a little traumatized by it. Qin Mu took back Junior Protector Sword. He flipped around the tortoise backguard's body to find that talisman treasure and stuffed it into his shirt. He then found some scattered items. After flipping around and not finding anything useful, he could only leave it at that. Heaven's Eyes, awaken. Green Heaven's Eyes, awaken. Heaven's Eyes and Green Heaven's Eyes opened up in Qin Mu's pupils and the densely packed runes formed 2 layers of heavens in his pupils. He looked around and everything here became clear in his eyes. Every golden altar here was covered in seal which was similar to the cube he had seen earlier. In every cube, there was a tiny figurine which looked fierce and these tiny figurines had their faces all warped and twisted. They grew messy hairs, razor-sharp teeth and claws, and if Qin Mu didn't use his Heaven's Eyes, he wouldn't have been able to see it. Qin Mu held up that talisman treasure and carefully sized up the runes on the 14 sides of the cube and made some comparison before shaking his head. This talisman treasure wasn't the key to unlock these golden altars and most probably, could only open this palace hall. He walked forward and looked at the golden altars one after another. He needed to act quickly as Ling Yuxiu should still be blocking the gate outside. Ling Yuxiu's ability was a level lower than him and despite learning the fusion of Chancellor Ba Shan's battle spells, she most probably couldn't hold on for a long period of time. There were all kinds of treasures on the golden altars and many of them were treasures unique to Roland's golden palace that were created strangely. There were some human skins that were used as canvases for painting and runes writing. There were some treasures that used skulls to make into arms bowl, human skins to make drums, as well as Whitebone Banner, 1000 Venom Souls Devouring Banner, Whitebone Shrine. These were all magical artifacts used by heterodox doctrines. Other than that, there were also quite some good items that were shining brilliantly in a golden glow. These items seemed to be treasures created by the ones on the level of the Shaman King. Qin Mu also saw some treasures that were not from the shaman cult were also placed here. There were 1,000 streamers pagoda, sariras, which were precious treasures of Buddhism. There were also a grape-sized sword pellet, a guqin which got burned at one end, and a broken sword. Suddenly, Qin Mu stopped and couldn't move his feet away. There was a stone tablet erected on this golden altar, and on the stone tablet was the incomplete diagram of a circulation technique. He knew it was the circulation diagram of Overlord Body 3 elixir technique with one look, however, it wasn't the circulation diagram of 6 directions realm. In his hurry, he couldn't determine which realm it was. Go, I have to find the legs. Qin Mu hurried and sprinted to the deepest end of this treasury. After a moment, he had explored the entire treasury once and stopped before a golden altar. He had already seen this golden altar once, however, he had still chosen to return here. There was a lower body of a person placed on this golden altar. It was the portion of the body that was below the waist, however, it was still standing steadily. However, Qin Mu was sure that it wasn't the lower body of Butcher. This lower body was shining brilliantly in a golden glow, and even its blood seemed to be a golden liquid, as well as the golden bones. This body gave off a terrifying aura which was even stronger than the Shaman King's. The body of Grand Shaman? Qin Mu blinked his eyes and gestured around his waist before thinking back about Butcher's body. It seemed like Butcher's body could be completely placed on top of this lower body. Grand Shaman exterminated that sect that had snatched Grandpa Butcher's lower body and seized his lower body. Grand Shaman then severed the lower half of his body and placed it here, while Grandpa Butcher's lower body, which should be here, had disappeared. The corner of Qin Mu's eyes twitched and he thought of a frightening possibility. Grand Shaman had severed his lower body and attached Butcher's lower body to his body. With my medical expertise, I'm completely able to do this. Grand Shaman should be able to do this too. His scalp can't help turning numb. Severing one's own lower body to attach someone else's lower body, what's the intention of Grand Shaman? Maybe he thought that Grandpa Butcher's body was more powerful than his body of gold, which was something he could never attain in his entire lifetime, therefore he had swapped the lower half of his body. However, there could be another possibility, that his Grand Shaman had used Grandpa Butcher's lower body to refine it into a spirit weapon with 2 legs. Qin Mu had a queer expression. The possibility of the latter was very small, but it's not impossible. He can't help revealing a distressed expression. The lower body on the golden altar also had seals, and if he stretched his hand over, his hand would definitely be eaten clean by those tiny figurines in the cubes. If Chancellor Ba Shan was here, he could just destroy these seals with his brute force, but Qin Mu didn't have this kind of ability. Grandpa Cripple had taught me heaven pilfering sun switching hands, but I never used it before. Could I pass through this seals and grab that lower body? His heart became worried and he suddenly started sprinting in this treasury, executing heaven pilfering divine legs that Cripple had imparted to him. His speed was like a flickering shadow, so fast that even naked eyes can't catch it. Qin Mu sprinted and executed heaven pilfering sun switching hands, causing his hands to move faster and faster like lightning. Cripple's effort was all spent on his hands and legs. His legs running fast was to escape for his life after being discovered stealing. His hands were fast because he could steal stuff. Qin Mu had always been cultivating heaven pilfering leg skill diligently, however, he had practiced heaven pilfering sun switching hands much lesser. Now that he was making a last-minute effort, he hoped he could comprehend more marvel of it. When he executed heaven pilfering divine legs and heaven pilfering sun switching hands at the same time, Qin Mu instantly noticed something wonderful and couldn't help crying out in surprise, stopping immediately. By executing 2 different skills at the same time, he actually felt that these 2 kinds of skills were actually one. It was just that Cripple had taught him this skill by splitting them into 2 parts. Originally, he had already felt extremely smooth and unhindered when he cultivated heaven pilfering divine legs, whereas now that he had executed both of them now, the speed of his vital chi circulation had increased several times. That the speed of vital chi circulation increased several times meant that the speed he moved his hands and legs could be increased by several times. Qin Mu composed himself and looked forward. The interior of the Golden Palace Hall's treasury was very spacious, having enough space for him to sprint. He suddenly exerted the strength in his legs and sprinted forward as if he was flying. The air in the palace hall gave off a tearing whistle and suddenly a bang was heard. Qin Mu had mercilessly crashed into the wall of the palace hall, which was 300 yards away from his starting point. He then collapsed backward stiffly. Around his body, a ring of white gas rose and dispersed. After a moment, Qin Mu stood up and shook his head. He exerted his strength again and another bang was created as a ring of white gas dispersed around his body. However, this time, he didn't bang into the wall and had run up the wall and then up across the ceiling with a whoosh. The tearing sound whooshed endlessly and Qin Mu stepped on the air in this treasury and whooshed over before whooshing back in a blink of an eye. Suddenly, during his frantic sprinting, he stretched his hand out and plucked. A golden altar became empty and on Qin Mu's hand, there was an alms bowl made from the top of a skull. Clank! The alms bowl landed on the ground and Qin Mu laughed out loudly. He let loose and sprinted as he stretched his hands only like a shooting light towards the golden altars beside his body. The golden altars got emptied out one by one and the treasures were strewn all over the floor. After a moment, all the golden altars were swept clean by him and Qin Mu hugged a pair of legs as he passed by a golden altar. His body suddenly halted and he placed the golden lower body down. No wonder Grandpa Cripple likes to steal stuff, so as it turns out, stealing is actually so refreshing. The youth of disabled elderly village let out a murky breath and looked at the treasures strewn all over on the floor, exclaiming in a refreshed tone, even if one leg was cut down, it's still worth it. Qin Mu suddenly came to the realization that his idea was very dangerous. That was how Cripple's leg was lost. Even though he always wore a smile on his face, he always sighed in secret and wanted to find back his leg yet didn't dare to. If he sank into the maniac stealing behavior that Cripple had before he was crippled, he would probably end up like him very soon. This kind of taste may be refreshing but it's best to do lesser of it. Qin Mu warned himself and looked at all the treasures strewn on the floor. Other than the evil treasure created by Roland's golden palace, he wanted to bring everything else away but the number of things he could bring was limited. This sword pellet must be something good for them to place it here. Qin Mu picked up the sword pellet which was very heavy and reckoned there must be numerous treasure swords sealed inside. His vital chi slowly entered the pellet and he heard a hum coming from the sword pellet as a curved knife flew out and slowly spun half a cycle in front of him. It's not a sword pellet, it's a knife pellet. Qin Mu was astonished. He had once seen this kind of knife pellets from the rebel army of barbarian Di Empire. The rebel army had used them to bombard Chancellor Ba Shan's Heavenly Spirits Escarpment which ended up in over tens of thousands of knives stuck on Heavenly Spirits Escarpment that couldn't be taken back. This was why Torimu was able to slay the rebel army with ease. Qin Mu picked up a curved knife and he couldn't use it easily, therefore, he reckoned that a special technique was needed to activate it. However, the quality of this curved knife was much better than the rebel army's curved knives. The quality wasn't inferior to his pig slaughtering knife. He retracted his vital chi back and the curved blade returned into the knife pellet with a clink, vanishing with a trace. There was an extremely large amount of curved knives in the knife pellet, thus it was definitely a huge killing weapon. Qin Mu then picked up that broken sword. He couldn't feel any power in the broken sword which seemed powerless and light when he held it in his hand. Qin Mu opened his heaven's eyes and green heaven's eyes to size it up carefully, however, he didn't see anything from it. Then again, for Roland's golden palace to place it in such an important treasury, there must be something extraordinary about it, thus he kept it as well. The guqin had one end burnt which Qin Mu deduced to be the mark of a lightning strike after taking a look at it. That's not right, there's a baleful and demonic air from this guqin. Qin Mu looked at it in detail and felt more and more strange. That was a baleful aura from the guqin as if there were dense blood and chi pulsing in it. Meanwhile, the demon aura was also incomparably dense. This guqin didn't seem like a guqin but more like an incomparably terrifying great demon. Could it be a tree spirit that had cultivated into a demon and got turned into a guqin by someone? Good stuff, going to take it away as well. Qin Mu carried the guqin on his back and picked up the bones of a hand. Just as he grabbed it, Qin Mu felt as if he was struck by thunder. His body trembled involuntarily and a loud and resounding voice exploded in his mind. God language. Qin Mu's expression hugely changed and immediately threw the bones of the hand away. That voice had spoken the God language and when he had held it in his hand, there seemed to be a god appearing in his head. When he plucked this bones of the hand from the golden altar just now, he had thrown it away straight after. Now then he knew what a right decision it was for him to throw away these bones of the hand. These bones are very strange, could it be the hand of a god? He composed his mind and pulled out Junior Protector Sword to flick these bones up. He then took a sack from the ground and placed the bones of the hand into it. Thousand Streamers Pagoda of Buddhism is also good stuff, though it's a little too big. Qin Mu sized Thousand Streamers Pagoda up and down. Each streamer of Thousand Streamers Pagoda was very exquisite and only 3 inches long, however, with 1,000 streamers stabbing elaborating into the shape of a pagoda, it was very huge. Reaching the height of several yards, it would definitely be eye-catching if he was to carry it out on his back. He picked up those few sariras and stuffed them into the sack. He then found a few jade pearls and also threw them into the sack. When Qin Mu also threw the knife pellet into the sack, only then did he feel something was amiss. The knife pellet was very heavy, however, when it went into the sack, he couldn't feel any weight of the knife pellet. He picked up the sack and flipped it around several times to take a closer look. This sack was also one of the treasures sealed on the golden altar which he had no idea what material it was made from and what use it had. There was a strange beast embroidered on one side of the sack which was opening its mouth wide open. The mouth of the strange beast and precisely at the position of the sack's opening. He opened his sack to look inside and saw a few items that were about the size of a sesame. They were the treasures which he had thrown in earlier. Qin Mu was stunned. He poured out the hand bones of the god, sariras, knife pellets and the rest. When these items slid out of the sack, they were still of their original sizes and there was no change. Weird. Qin Mu opened up the sack's opening and put his head into the sack to take a look inside. He was shocked as he saw a space that had an area of 6 ars and a height of 6 to 7 yards. He pulled back his head and stretched his hand into the sack. With an arm inside, he still couldn't touch the bottom of the sack. Qin Mu pondered for a moment and placed the hand bones of the god, sariras, knife pellets and the rest back into the sack. He then placed the guqin into the sack, along with the 1,000 streamers pagoda. He then carried up that golden lower body and stuffed it into the sack as well. The youth then stood up and picked up everything that was on the floor and stuffed them into the sack, abandoning those that were too big to be able to stuff into the sack. A moment later, the sack started to bulge slightly and he could gradually feel some weight, however, it wasn't heavy. Qin Mu lowered his head and picked up the items which he had thrown away once more. He picked out a few pill cauldrons and one of them was a sealed cauldron which was much bigger and valuable than the one in Imperial College. All that was left in this treasury were magical artifacts that were made by the shaman cult using human bones. Qin Mu gave a sigh of relief and hung the sack at his waist, using his clothes to cover it. There's not much time left, I should go out to look for Sister Yushio and leave this place as soon as possible. The youth's heart thumped wildly and he tried to compose himself. After some calculations, he didn't wear back the human skin and instead, took out his pig-slaughtering knives and styled his hair to make him look like a disciple of the shaman cult. Qin Mu wore Dambaro's clothes and circulated the heavenly god creation technique of great educational heavenly devil scriptures. Minute changes started to happen to the color of his skins as it gave off a faint golden glow. With a look, he looked like a shaman of Roland's Golden Palace who had small attainments. Qin Mu flipped open the geographic map of Roland's Golden Palace and kept it back. His vital qi activated that talisman treasure, causing it to rise into the air. The runes lighted up one by one and shone toward the seals of the treasury's door. 12, 9, 6, 10, 7, 6, 7, 1. Qin Mu chanted numbers and every chant would cause the talisman treasure to spin in the air, shining one of the 14 sides to the seal. When he had entered this treasury, that tortoise backguard had activated this talisman treasure to unseal the seals. The transformations of the talisman treasure were extremely complicated as it had 14 sides and on each side, there were different runes. It was very difficult for him if he wanted to memorize all these runes. However, memorizing the order of these runes was not complicated to Qin Mu. He had memorized the 14 sides of the talisman treasure as 14 numbers. He then reversed the order of the numbers when the tortoise backguard had used to enter, solving the restrictions from inside. In front of him, the cubes appeared and moved back one after another as Qin Mu walked out. He finally walked out of the treasury without a hitch. Qin Mu gave a sigh of relief and took out Junior Protector Sword to smash the talisman treasure into pieces. He then walked towards the warehouse of Roland's Golden Palace according to the directions given on the map. Even though Roland's Golden Palace was currently having their gate blocked, there was still a great shaman on duty in the warehouse. Qin Mu handed over a prescription and that great shaman read out, 2 maces of mock strawberry, 1 tail 6 maces of sacred bamboo, 4 maces of oleander. So many herbs, are you preparing to refine out a great medicine? Qin Mu nodded his head and smiled honestly, I was injured just now so I'm preparing to supplement myself. You have fought that fellow blocking the gate. I have also heard about it, many people had died. Luckily that fellow has already been killed so it still isn't that humiliating. It was really humiliating back when Marshal Khan had blocked the gate. That great shaman prepared the herbs and Qin Mu handed Dambaro's coin pouch over to him. Is there fresh figs formed by crimson pearl grass? Give me 4 figures. This item is very expensive so how can we have fresh ones? Do you want dried ones? Dried ones are fine too. That great shaman brought over dried figs and Qin Mu took one to put into his mouth. That great shaman saw that he was simple and honest so he secretly took out a few more coins from his coin pouch and was secretly gleeful. Qin Mu's expression changed and shouted, You overcharged me. That great shaman's expression changed and retorted angrily, I didn't do that. You're slandering me. Qin Mu pulled into his coin pouch and said, I know how much money I have in my coin pouch, I would know if you have overcharged me. I'm going to report this to the Shaman King. That great shaman immediately pulled back the coin pouch and when they were both tugging on it, a jade bottle accidentally fell into the warehouse and smashed into pieces. Don't report it to the shaman. Before the great shaman could finish saying his words, he suddenly collapsed. A fragrant scent spread out in the warehouse and the other few shamans in the warehouse who were coming over after they heard the commotion collapsed onto the floor before they could even get near. Qin Mu threw the coin pouch into the warehouse which landed on the body of that great shaman. He then carefully looked into the sack hanging on his waist and picked out a cauldron. It was that sealed cauldron which he had found in the treasury. I have added 10 times the amount to Lost Fragrance this time. I don't believe I can't paralyze the entire Roland's Golden Palace. He placed the herbs into the cauldron and his vital qi burst forth to circle around this cauldron rapidly. His hand techniques were ever-changing and dazzling to the eyes. After a while, he had finished refining Lost Fragrance in the cauldron. However, The vital qi on Qin Mu's palm still continued to burst forth with blazing flames. He didn't use black tortoise vital qi to cool it down like he did previously and instead, burned more and more furiously. After a moment, Qin Mu stopped and opened the cauldron's lid. Pink smoke started to surge out from the furnace and spread in all directions. If not for the crimson pearl fig in his mouth which could negate the medicinal effects of lost fragrance, he would have felt his limbs vanishing. He immediately held his breath and saw the smoke continuing to surge out from the cauldron. Qin Mu's vital qi transformed into green dragon vital qi and he executed the wind calling spells in great educational heavenly devil scriptures to disperse the smoke. Soon, the gust had spread lost fragrance throughout the entire mountain. He immediately rushed to a golden palace hall and carried his backpack. Securing his knives, iron hammer, he threw his sword case aside as he rushed to the direction of the mountain gate. His vital qi transformed into black tortoise vital qi and formed a ball of water vapor which then turned into a ball of water. Qin Mu placed the remaining 3 crimson pearl figs into the balls of water and sprinted. With one hand holding up the 3 balls of water, his other hand moved like a phantom. With his fingers moving up and down in different hand techniques, he tapped on the balls of water to hasten the medicinal energy of the crimson pearl figs. That 3 figs absorbed the water and soon became plump, with their medicinal energy aroused by him. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and suddenly, golden lights rose into the sky and hurriedly flew away. They should be the few shaman kings who were guarding in front of the sacred hall panicking and escaping Roland's golden palace after they had seen the disciples on the entire mountain dying from being poisoned. Dead, they're all dead. A loud and resounding voice carried terror and panic as disappeared in the distance. Qin Mu pushed his speed to the maximum and sprinted down the mountain. He saw the green bull, Hu Linga and Ling Yusho all lying on the ground. There were wounds all over Ling Yusho's body and she was stained with blood. He immediately stuffed a crimson pearl fig into each of their mouths and they slowly woke up. However, they still felt slightly numb, along with their souls and spirit embryos that were also slightly sore. They had no idea what had just happened. Lost fragrance can scare the shaman kings away but it can't knock them out. Qin Mu spoke quickly. I'm afraid there are a few existences that are comparable to Chancellor Ba Shan in Roland's Golden Palace who would rush here immediately after receiving the news. We need to leave immediately. Ling Yusho stood up unsteadily and the green bull also swayed its heavy head. Qin Mu carried the little fox up and stuffed her into his backpack. With one hand pulling onto Ling Yusho and the other hand pulling onto the green bull, he rushed down the mountain. Ling Yusho was still in a dazed state. She gave him a silly smile and said, "Cowherd, you're still alive." Qin Mu turned a deaf ear to her and rushed all the way down the mountain. He was so fast that Ling Yusho and the green bull couldn't catch up with his pace and started to float up. When they came to the bottom of the mountain, Qin Mu looked towards the wooden boat and the goat-faced great shaman was also paralyzed with his head in the water and his butt sticking up to the sky. With half of his body left on the boat, he should have already drowned. Qin Mu quickly got up on the boat and flipped the goat-faced great shaman's legs over, throwing him into the water. He pushed the bamboo pole but the boat didn't move at all. Qin Mu pushed the bamboo pole a few times more but the boat remained motionless. There's no buoyancy in the weak waters. Qin Mu instantly came to a realization. He poured in vital qi into the bamboo pole and strange markings appeared on the bamboo pole. Now when he pushed the weak waters, he actually felt a resistance from the water. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and immediately pushed the bamboo pole to sail towards the other side of the shore. Even though this wooden boat was pushed forward like an arrow that had left the bow, he still found it too slow. If the shaman kings and grand shaman of Roland's Golden Palace returned to the mountain, they could probably detoxify lost fragrance immediately and know that these people were only paralyzed and not poisoned. If they were to give chase now, Qin Mu and the rest would face an incomparably miserable end. When they finally reached the other side of the shore, the green bull returned to his senses and immediately shouted, "Old master is still on the mountain." Qin Mu said, "Don't worry, if we can escape, he can as well. He is much stronger than us. If we go and look for him, we'll be his burden instead." Furthermore, when Grand Shaman and the Shaman Kings returned to Roland's Golden Palace to investigate, that would give Chancellor Ba Shan a chance to escape. He jumped onto the shore and stretched out his hand. However, Ling Yusho and the green bull had already jumped over as well and didn't need him to support. That crimson pearl fig had allowed them to completely recover. Crimson pearl fig was indeed the antidote for lost fragrance. Lost fragrance was originally what apothecary used to paralyze a dragon. That dragon had an extremely strong ability which was comparable to a strong practitioner of celestial being realm, yet it was paralyzed by apothecary. The only bane of this anesthetic was crimson pearl fig. Green bull. Qin Mu gave a shout and the green bull understood his intention. He instantly pronated on the ground and revealed his true form, turning into a huge and majestic green bull that was riding on the wind and clouds. Qin Mu and Ling Yusho jumped on the back of the bull and said, "Green bull, run as fast as you can." The hooves of the green bull moved and his hooves didn't touch the ground as he sprinted on the wind and clouds. The two people on the back of the bull felt extreme pain as the strong wind bombarded them in their faces. On Qin Mu's back, Hu Linga had woken up and was almost blown away by the wind when she stuck her head out to have a look. She immediately grabbed the backpack and her body was already blown out from the backpack, the strong wind pulling her tail and body straight like a pencil. The green bull's hooves raised up and down, and every time his hooves were a foot away from the ground, wind would surge out from his hooves and pushed his huge body upwards, making his speed extremely fast. Qin Mu turned his head back and his hair was all messed up. His hairstyle was like shaman and had no band to tie it up. Only then did he notice Hu Linga, who was grabbing onto the backpack with her two paws. Her body was blown straight by the wind and he immediately grabbed her so she didn't get blown away by the wind. Ling Yuxiu shouted, "Cowherd, let me carry her so you can tidy your hair." Qin Mu handed Hu Linga over to her and Ling Yuxiu carried Hu Linga in her arms. Hu Linga gave a humph when she felt her chest was soft and fragrant. Even though she wasn't happy, she was very comfortable and couldn't resist giving one or two nudges she felt torn. Qin Mu took out a headband and tied up his hair, taking a look back from time to time. He saw that the distance between them and Roland's golden palace was growing greater and greater. He could still faintly see the golden lights flying from the snow mountain towards Roland's golden palace at a steady pace. Those golden lights may not look fast, but they were actually extremely fast, reaching Roland's golden palace in just a breath's time. After a moment, the few golden lights flew out from Roland's golden palace towards their directions. Qin Mu's heart sank. Those few golden lights should be the shaman kings of Roland's golden palace who had discovered their trials and was currently chasing over. Even though the green bull's speed was extremely fast, his cultivation couldn't be compared to the shaman kings. However, at this moment, a bright light rose up and intercepted those few golden lights. The few rays of light collided in the sky and separated before colliding again. From the distance where Qin Mu was at, the speed of the few rays wasn't fast, but if one looked at them from a close distance, they would be so fast that no one could see them clearly. Those few rays collided a few times with the white light and suddenly a ball of light exploded, following up with a trail of black smoke appearing in the sky which formed a skull. The skull spewed out few trails of black smoke from its mouth and each trail of black smoke turned into a skull. With this happening thrice in a row, the entire sky was filled with skulls. The shapes of the skulls could be seen from so far, they must be incomparably gigantic if he saw them up close. They must be as astonishing as mountains. Then, Qin Mu saw a knife cutting across the vast sky and a ray of golden light suddenly broke among the few golden lights. The green bull ran faster and faster, soon Qin Mu couldn't see the battle clearly anymore. When the green bull had sprinted by another few mountains, he totally couldn't see anything. As the sun set in the west, the sky gradually darkened. The green bull ran for half a day and panted with exhaustion as his mouth started to foam. Seeing a pond on the prairie ahead, he immediately ran over and gulped down the water. Not long later, half of the water in the pond had disappeared. The green color backs of the fish could be seen at the shallow parts of the pond as a few foot-long fish squirmed their bodies in the mud, trying to crawl to the places with more water. Qin Mu saw him being unbearably tired and jumped down from the bull's back. "Green bull, stop running and rest for a while." The green bull hasn't drunk to his content, and at this moment, an elderly voice sounded out, "That bull, stop drinking. If you drink some more, you'll drink all of the water for our village." The green bull raised his head and an elderly herder passed by here and abandoned his flock of sheep in a hurry to rush over. He tried to swing his whip to chase the green bull away, but when he saw the green bull being terrifyingly huge, he didn't dare to get close and swung his whip from afar. Shoo, shoo. Qin Mu patted on the bull's hoof as this green bull had revealed his true form, which was incomparably tall and sturdy. Qin Mu was only as tall as his ankle, so he could only pat the bull's hoof. The green bull immediately stopped drinking while Ling Yuxiu hurriedly jumped down from the back of the bull. Hu Linga also squirmed out from her embrace and jumped on Qin Mu's backpack. That elder dared not come forward and the green bull squirmed his body to shrink his body size. Standing up like a human, he was also 2 to 3 persons tall. Swinging his tail, he swatted a few gadflies to death. Qin Mu greeted from afar and said, "Elder, we are passing by and the sky is about to turn dark, therefore we had stopped for a rest. This journey has really been tiring and we're really thirsty, so my bull has drunk slightly more. I do beg your pardon." That elder went forward and raised his head to look at the green bull while letting out a sigh of exclamation. He was still slightly afraid. "Your bull sure is well fed, growing to be so sturdy. How come this bull is green in color?" Qin Mu smiled. "He's a mixed dragon breed, therefore, it's green in color." That elder wanted to touch yet was afraid to touch. Mustering his courage, he came to the bull's side and gave it a touch. He felt that his skin was like satin while his muscles were like iron and exclaimed, "His muscles sure are sturdy. We also have a few cows in our village. Can he be used for breeding?" The green bull was unhappy and said, "Elder, I'm not a breeding cattle, so I won't breed. My heart is already taken." That elder jumped in shock and muttered, "Demon?" Qin Mu immediately said, "He's not a demon." Hu Linga stuck her head out, "I'm a demon." That elder suddenly saw the light and smiled at Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu. I know, you must have escaped from a rich family, am I right? Only rich family can afford to raise a strange beast and a fox immortal. The sky is turning dark, how about coming to our village to take a rest? Qin Mu hesitated for a moment and looked at Ling Yuxiu. Ling Yuxiu said softly, the green bull is exhausted and can't run anymore. Qin Mu frowned, if Roland's golden palace was to catch up, I'm afraid we would implicate them. Ling Yuxiu said softly, the green bull has always traveled on the wind and clouds, not leaving any traces, so it would be hard for them to find us. How about this, if their village is quite hidden, we can stay there for the night. If it's very eye-catching, we'll be on our way. Qin Mu nodded his head and said, Elder, in that case, we'll have to bother you for tonight. We will continue on our way the next morning. The elder smiled, it's not a problem if you want to stay for a few more days. There aren't many people in our village as well, they are all old folks who come closer to death with every passing day. Your body is pretty sturdy, help me herd the sheep. Qin Mu went forward and his body technique was extremely fast. He soon chased the flock of sheep together and the elder's eyes lighted up. Young lady, you have great eyesight, this young man is sturdy and capable. Ling Yuxiu's face turned red, Elder, it's not what you think it is. That elder laughed loudly and brought them along to chase the flock of sheep. Walking around a col, they came to a small village in the forest. This village wasn't huge and there were only 20 buildings. However, most of them were empty as there were only over 10 elderly people staying there. The forest was very secluded and the trees were tall and huge as no one was able to trim them, resulting in the trees covering the small village. Why are there so few people here? Qin Mu put his heart at ease and asked puzzledly. The few Khans fight every day, with you killing me and I killing you. You grab some able-bodied men, I grab some able-bodied men, as they grab and grab, the people get lesser. That elder sighed and said, those capable ones in the village have all moved out and only us elderly are left. We can't move even if we want to. Where can we move to? It's lucky they did not touch us old bones when grabbing away the able-bodied men during these few years. Darling, there are visitors. An old granny who was mending clothes stood up shakily and smiled. There are visitors? I'll prepare some food. Qin Mu immediately said, let me do it. I have frequently prepared meals when I was back at the village. That old granny couldn't win him and could only watch him cook up dishes along with the elder. Ling Yuxiu hurriedly went forward to invite the two old people to sit down. Where are they from? The old granny beamed. That elder blinked his eyes and stuck his two thumbs to do a kissing action, ran away from a rich family, a young couple eloping. Ling Yuxiu's face turned red from embarrassment and protested softly, it's not like that, we're innocent. We've all been through that so we understand, the young lady is thin-skinned. The old granny sized her up and revealed a few loose teeth as she smiled, the young lady is good, sturdy body with big bosoms and buttocks. This young man has quite a blessing. The elder smiled, the young man is good as well, pretty sturdy too. He is also very honest and not overbearing. When he saw the old and frail me, he was also very polite. The old granny continued, you two should return home after eloping for a year or two. Give birth to a baby and bring the baby back, even if your family doesn't approve, they would have no choice. Ling Yuxiu kept nodding her head and her heart was restless as she didn't know how to continue the conversation. She thought to herself, if I was to give birth to a baby with cowherd, won't my father die from anger? Bah, father won't die from anger but he will definitely behead him. Touch wood, touch wood. After a moment, the fragrance of the dishes floated out and Ling Yuxiu hurried forward to help serve the dishes. When they finished their meals, the sky had turned completely dark. There were only old folks in the entire village so they only lighted oil lamps before turning in for bed. Qin Mu helped this two elderly wash their cutleries and that elder said, there are many empty houses in the village, you can just choose one to live in. Qin Mu gave his thanks and walked into an empty residence. Hu Linga helped to tidy up 3 rooms and calculated to herself, Green Bull will take 1 room, Plump Bosom Vixen will take 1 room, me and Young Master will take 1 room. 3 rooms, no problem. Suddenly Qin Mu had a feeling and raised his head up to look at the sky. He saw 2 stars moving from the west in the sky and hurriedly said, everyone, get in. Ling Yuxiu, the Green Bull, and Hu Linga hurriedly entered the house and just as they entered, they heard a hum as 2 thick light pillars came landing down, lighting up the entire village as if it was in the day. Those 2 rays were visions and the owner of these visions was flying in the sky and surveying the prairie. The 2 visions shone downwards, lighting up the prairie in a golden glow. The visions swept past this small village at the foot of the mountain before leaving in the distance. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and opened the door to look up to the sky. He saw the 2 stars shining pillars of light along their way, which covered a radius of 2 to 3 miles as they went further and further away. I wonder how is senior brother Ba Shan doing? He was indeed a little worried. The people who had just passed by should be the strong practitioners of Roland's Golden Palace on the level of the Shaman Kings. As they searched their way over, This shaman king didn't discover this village because the green bull did not leave any trails and there were no lamps lighted up in this hidden in the forest village. People here were all elderly people and they all went to bed very early. However, for this shaman king to be able to come search for them, it meant that Chancellor Ba Shan couldn't stop him, which could most likely be either Chancellor Ba Shan was injured or he was being surrounded. Let's go to sleep. Qin Mu threw a small jade bottle to Ling Yuxiu and said, Sister, dragon's saliva is surprisingly effective to the wounds on your body. You should smear some on your body first before turning into bed. We'll leave immediately in the morning. Ling Yuxiu nodded her head and went into the room. After a moment, this girl opened the door and popped her head out. With her beautiful black hair hanging down in the front of her chest, she revealed half of her smooth shoulder with the rest of her body hidden behind the door. She said shyly, Cowherd, there are some places which I can't see so it's inconvenient for me to smear. I'll help you. Hu Linga rushed over excitedly and smiled, I'll help you smear, there's no need to bother young master. It was a night without words. The next day before daybreak, Qin Mu got up to do some stretching. The elderly in the village got up too and the sound of feeding chickens could be heard. There were also sounds of people chasing the sheep out of the sheep's pen, sounds of elderly greeting each other. For a moment, Qin Mu thought he had returned to disabled elderly village in great ruins. Little couple, have you woken up? Breakfast is ready, you can come to my house to eat. The old granny's voice came from outside. Qin Mu acknowledged and proceeded to wake up Ling Yuxiu and the green bull before carrying Hu Linga out from the bed to walk out of this dilapidated house. At this moment, a voice came from outside the village, There's a village here, let us ask for directions. Ask for what directions? It's impossible for me to be lost. A voice which was brimming with anger sneered, I've been there before and blocked the gate for 100 days, how could I be lost? Qin Mu was stunned and gave an unbelievable look as he rushed to the village's entrance at once. There's no harm in asking. You said you remembered the way yet we ended up walking round and round the prairie for such a long time, I'm not like Cripple that wretch who can run so fast. Qin Mu came to the village's entrance with quick steps and saw a blind man walking over with a bamboo cane. Beside him was a half-body old man with a stubbly beard, carrying 2 pig slaughtering knives on his back, making him look fiendish. Qin Mu was surprised and delighted. He hurriedly ran over and tightly hugged the half-body old man up without explanation. He then threw the half-body old man aside and tightly hugged the dry and thin old man. Butcher, haven't I said we went the wrong way? That blind man immediately turned his head away to avoid Qin Mu. He struggled and looked at the stupefied butcher who was thrown in one corner. You brought me to the region beyond the Great Wall and look what happened. You brought me back to great ruins, we're back at our village. Mua, let go, I'm going to suffocate. Where's village chief? Is Granny back as well? Apothecary, stop hiding, I saw you. After a moment, Blind and Butcher greeted the elderly people in the village. When the elderly in the village saw that they were even older than them and disabled, they all admired endlessly and secretly exclaimed they were old yet strong. Ling Yuxiu came out from her room after she finished washing her hair and jumped in shock when she saw the 2 elders. She immediately ran back into her room with her heart thumping wildly. They are those 2 elders that scared me and little General Qin on Surging River that day. Qin Mu avoided all the elderly in the village and took out the sack on his waist. Pushing up the bottom of the sack, he reached in to rummage the items inside, pulling out 2 legs before tugging out the remaining half of the body and said, Grandpa Butcher, is this golden lower body the one you've lost? No. This isn't my body. Butcher took a careful look at this golden lower body and used his knife to give a slice after a moment. Touching the golden blood that was flowing out, he said suspiciously, this body seems to be Grand Shaman's. I had fought with this old brat once and I'm very familiar with his blood. This lower body is already more or less dead, making it useless. Qin Mu also went forward to touch the golden blood which had already half solidified. However, there was still a fire property hidden within it and a drop of blood was even squirming on his fingertip, trying to enter his body. Qin Mu immediately executed his vital qi and turned it into vermilion bird vital qi to burn it continuously. He spent quite a great effort before he could evaporate this drop of blood, since it's the lower body of Grand Shaman. In that case, Grandpa Butcher's lower body should be on Grand Shaman. That old brat actually admires me to that extent. Butcher rubbed his beard, pleased with himself. In that case, are the sons he gave birth his sons or my sons? The beard stubble on his face was like iron spikes, giving off scratching sounds as his hand went over them. The more he thought, the more he became pleased with himself and couldn't help laughing out loud. Blind said neither too fast nor too slow, if he really gave birth to a son, or even a bunch of sons, are you going to acknowledge them? Butcher was stumped and his face turned bitter straight away. The pleased look he had earlier had totally vanished. With one sentence from Blind, Butcher became dazed. Blind then asked Qin Mu, Mua, why are you here? Qin Mu told them about the entire story and Blind cried out, you actually went to block the gate of Roland's Golden Palace? Pretty big guts. The reason I have accompanied Butcher out is also to go to Roland's Golden Palace. We have found out that Butcher's lower body was snatched away by Roland's golden palace. Butcher said even if we find it, he doesn't know if it could be reattached. Qin Mu smiled. If the lower body is dead, it's definitely impossible. But since Grandpa Butcher's lower body is on Grand Shaman's body, he definitely attached it to his body when it was still alive. As long as we find Grand Shaman and sever his lower body, I can help Grandpa Butcher reattach his body. Blind gave a smile and said, that's a small matter. Butcher, this wretch can finally be complete. He didn't even have a bird in the past. Butcher flew into a fury. I can transform my vital chi into my body. What do you mean I have no bird? I can pee and shit just fine. The two of them started to quarrel again, giving Qin Mu a headache. Qin Mu immediately said, senior brother Ba Shan is still trapped in Roland's golden palace and his situation is unknown. Grandpa's. Butcher shook his head. No need to care about that rascal. He lacks a door on his mouth and blurt out anything and everything without ever stopping. I had met him in eternal peace and he still hadn't died from saying the wrong things. I dislike his nagging and was afraid of being annoyed by him, therefore, I had left. Even though he had said it that way, he had wanted to leave for Roland's golden palace immediately. He was still worried about the safety of Chancellor Ba Shan after all. Hu Ling'er and Ling Yuxiu had already finished packing up and Ling Yuxiu went to that old granny and elder's house to leave a few gold ingots. Even though they had only stayed for a night, they had received their hospitality. Furthermore, the elders in the village were all very old and have no young people in the village. Leaving some money for them would help them get through their later years. Butcher looked at Ling Yuxiu, clearly forgetting this seventh princess as he smiled. Rascal has good eyesight, this girl ain't half bad. Ling Yuxiu mustered her courage and went forward to greet him and Blind. The green bull had run out in the morning to graze, he's not yet back. Let us go and find him. Everyone left the village and saw a huge green bull grazing on the grass of the prairie. As he grazed, his tears streamed down like rain while muttering, ever since I followed Old Master, I've always been eating vegetables and never grass. Old Master even built dozens of vegetable field to plant flowers for me. Hu Ling'er scampered forward and said, Bull 2, stop crying. Your old master is here, there's hope for your old master. The face of the green bull twitched when he saw Blind and Butcher who was only left with his upper body, doubting their abilities. Everyone got on the back of the bull and Qin Mu said, don't worry, Green Bull, they are very powerful. Let us go to Roland's golden palace as soon as possible to save senior brother Ba Shan. The green bull could only sprint back on the way he came from. Ling Yuxiu looked back and the small village which was hidden in the forest already couldn't be seen. Those few elders had said that the few khans beyond the Great Wall are currently fighting each other. This means that the people beyond the Great Wall also feel threatened by the rise of Eternal Peace Empire. Ling Yuxiu composed herself and said, they are also thinking of building a unified empire to gather all the strength to face Eternal Peace Empire. This Khan of Barbarian Di Empire should be a great leader with a great ambition. If he was to unify the Great Wall, I'm afraid there would be trouble for our Eternal Peace Empire. Especially now that our Eternal Peace is frequently having civil unrest. Qin Mu nodded his head, this must be the intention of Roland's Golden Palace. Roland's Golden Palace is the sacred ground after all. If they support the Khan of Barbarian Di Empire, it's not hard for them to unify the Great Wall. I reckon Roland's Golden Palace is also hesitant as they are scared of grooming another Eternal Peace Empire, making them lose control over the region beyond Great Wall. This is why Barbarian Di Empire has yet to unify the region beyond Great Wall until now. Ling Yuxiu gave it some thoughts and it was indeed reasonable. However, the three biggest sacred grounds in Eternal Peace Empire, Tao Sect, Great Thunderclap Monastery, Heavenly Devil Cult did not support Eternal Peace Empire. Not only did they not support, there were still sects creating troubles for them. If Barbarian Di Empire was to receive the full support from Roland's Golden Palace, they would probably have the power to invade Eternal Peace Empire. The Green Bull sprinted for almost half a day when Blind suddenly said, halt. The Green Bull immediately halted. Blind pointed in the southwest direction and said, go over there. I can see people fighting over there. The Green Bull was bewildered. Blind saw people fighting over there. How did he see them? However, it was not good for him to question Blind, so he could only change his direction and sprinted southwest. Ling Yuxiu was also slightly puzzled and she looked at Qin Mu. Qin Mu explained, Grandpa Blind has the best eyesight in our village. Blind was proud of himself. Ling Yuxiu looked at his eyes and saw his eye sockets being completely empty and had nothing inside, making her thought to herself, why is Blind the one with the best eyesight? What the logic in this? Not long after the Green Bull had changed his direction, they suddenly saw a knife light cutting across a mountain. However, due to the long distance, they could only see weak rays. Only then did they admire Blind endlessly. Ling Yuxiu was between bewildered, he really is blind. Butcher also exclaimed, Blind's eyesight is really good. This video will end here.